and our players across the league are too often the targets. This is not something any player in this league should have to tolerate.
Do you think Caitlin's being used as a pawn? Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this.
As we have been trying to convey, this is where it all began. Continue until the very end to find out why the Indiana Fever are making such big changes. The squad has undergone significant changes recently, including the shocking revelation about CaitlinClark. Subbird has also spoken out against racism in the WNBA. It had long been due. Gold medalists, MVPs, and legends have all overcome similar obstacles. Suddenly, someone finds the courage to speak up. Sud didn't merely raise her voice to make a statement. She had pyrotechnics with her. The Indiana Fever camp reacted more violently than we did. Proceed. We want to reset one item, and that's what I want to do. And it's the words that are spoken in front of supporters. Caitlin lovers, Fever fans, and new fans. In fact, that must be removed. Despite the risk to her job, she bravely went underground in an open podcast with Megan Rapinoe. The speaker questioned why CaitlinClark is the target of racist assaults despite her impressive accomplishments and growing sales. She even put forth an anti-Harik plan today.
There is one thing I want to reset, that we want to reset, and it's the language being used around fans. Fever fans, Caitlin fans, new fans. That actually...
Day Carrington was questioned by journalist Christine over an odd incident that transpired after a game. This seems like just another question, doesn't it? When athletes were questioned about challenging circumstances, things quickly became worse. Despite the investigation seeming innocent, Rapinoe insisted that it had a racist undertone, providing a novel perspective on the subject.
Did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlin, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I...
About it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it?
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her. So I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened.
Sue took a tough stand, accusing ESPN in particular of escalating the dispute. The speaker argued that the media's interpretation of the question was problematic rather than racist. Sue pointed out that athletes of color are scrutinized more than their white colleagues. What would happen if a black athlete took part? The issue escalates into a race conflict.
Hearing it initially, my visceral reaction was like, that's not good. That doesn't feel good. That feels racist, to be honest.
Who is still getting warmed up, said that this was a part of a larger scheme. Christine criticized the WNBA and the media for allowing suspicions to spread, even though she wished for the issue to not get worse. Sue believes that less people would have heard about the event if Day had been a white athlete. If Carrington had been a white player, the plot would have been much more complex and had wider ramifications.
Disagree with you on Christine Brennan's question being dickish, or maybe she shouldn't have answered it, because it was something that was out there that everybody was talking about. And so she asked the question, and it was a great opportunity for Carrington to, on the record, say, no, I didn't do it. And that's all that happened. So I do disagree with you. I don't think it was a dickish question. I think it was a fine question based on what was going on.
Terasai, Diana. The story began with a statement from one of the participants. The great's own forceful statement served as the impetus for the WNBA globe. We are talking about complete anarchy. Subbird, our resident voice of reason, stepped in to clarify the meaning behind those statements. The effect was very strong this time. It got ugly. Refers to a departure from traditional competition sparring, as Sue puts it. As hate speech increased, the game's focus on basketball decreased. How wonderful, oh. Fans are enraged by topics that are not related to the game, such as racism and privilege.
To the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. And what started there was this narrative of petty, jealous players hating on Caitlin. That's really what happened. That's where it started, that we must just dislike her, that we look at her side-eyed, that we don't want her to come in the WNBA and be successful, that we're hating on her, right? So we're petty.
Sue Bird made it clear that Caitlin had to deal with more than just elbows and nasty comments. Unfortunately, Caitlin was dodging actual punches instead of symbolic ones. Every time she stood in court, she felt the need to be prepared for more than just the opposition's strategies. It was unfair that players were making fun of her. Sue clarified that this was not only a compelling defense. Caitlin faced challenges outside of the normal WNBA game. It was awkward and personal. Sue did not minimize the importance of race. The situation involving Caitlin went beyond the question of why she was given so much credit and given preference over other athletes. Her basketball accomplishments were interpreted as proof of racism, privilege, and a broader issue that impacts athletes of color. Hold back, Sudan. This issue was no longer specific to sports. The racism-related annoyances that were going on in the league at the time drew Caitlin in.
Did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlin? Not at any point did I think Caitlin was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then, when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlin's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they're
been vocal in her condemnation of CaitlinClark and her supporters' racism, implying that she'll get away with it. As if she had been aware of Angel Reed and Alyssa Thomas for some time, she spoke openly about them. Ray has been proud and vocal during her time at LSU. Thomas has contributed significantly to the Connecticut Sun. Some claim that Caitlyn Jenner is an example of white privilege in the NBA since she receives preferential treatment based on her skin tone rather than.
I think it's really just the fans, her fans, the Iowa fans, now the Indiana fans that are like, they ride for her. And I respect that respectfully, but sometimes it's very disrespectful. I think there's a lot of racism when it comes.
How about her? She could not stand it any longer and demanded that the misleading story be taken down. She categorically declared that Ree and Thomas's actions were damaging and immoral.
Now, like, it's popping right now, and just being able to know that, like, I'm happy where I'm happy to see all the girly girls being able to pop it and look cute on the runway and being able to continue that.
Sue accepts racism in the WNBA but emphasizes that the charges against Caitlin are unfounded. Caitlin believes that Ray and Thomas are undermining her and hiding their personal grievances behind the racial narrative rather than accepting responsibility for their actions. This report on racism in sports isn't really groundbreaking. Rather, it functions more as a justification. Sue is not coming with us. Beware of spoilers. Sue didn't hold back either.
And led to this group of people being able to push those racist agendas, which really has been, in my opinion, the cause of all of this. And everybody from this moment on has, not everybody, but a lot of people have been operating under the assumption that these narratives, particularly the targeting narrative, is true.
Before this year, this concept is not new. They're using Caitlin as a pawn. I do not believe that Caitlin brought MHM racism to the WBA. This has been happening. This has astonished us all, and it has stunned others as well. We have been trying to communicate. Bird was having a disagreement. Look at the amount of attention that Caitlin is getting. We shouldn't act that way just because she's white since she's an amazing athlete. Bird believes that the incident has been turned into a made-up story. Sue refused to let Ray and Thomas misrepresent the truth, despite the fact that CaitlinClark was in the headlines. The Bird has swiftly ascended. She is clearly in charge of the court.
Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing.
Sure.
This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this.
Sue's claims to have spoken with and learned about CaitlinClark firsthand were startling. What do you know? What about the white privilege narrative that Ray and Thomas promote? Sue clarified that Caitlin is not a wealthy athlete who just benefits from her race. Instead, she has worked hard and risen through the ranks, just like everyone else. Bird communicates the problem honestly and recognizes its complexity. To leave.
Obviously doing amazing. Her game speaks for itself. I think my favorite part is just women's basketball, women's sports really, but women's basketball has been on the rise. And it's kind of like what Magic and Bird was to men's basketball. Like this moment, we kind of needed something.
This is
to
that
just
moment.
and Caitlin's that moment. And I think a lot of it has to do with her logo.
But this is the point at which things start to go wrong. According to Sue, athletes are now hitting Caitlin on the court with the excuse of race. Racist charges are hurting her, and the issue is not limited to basketball. Bird asserted that the game has changed beyond straightforward competitiveness because people are unjustly targeting Caitlin out of racism, jealousy, or other resentments. Caitlin is avoiding verbal and physical harassment, and it's becoming much too personal.
Understand why at times it's been used. It's kind of just when you're in an interview and you get asked a question, it's kind of easy to go, oh, the FIFA fan base.
Yeah, what do you
Caitlin
mean by
fans.
that? That has to
Oh,
go.
these new fans. It has to go because it's not the Fever fans. It's not Caitlin fans. That is a large group of people. Let's stick with the Fever for a second. That is a large group of people. And what we're talking about as we get into the meat of this, we're talking about the faction of that group that is pushing racist agendas and is pushing hate and creating, divisiveness online, acting as fans, acting as Fever.
Sue is straightforward about how the racial bias claim has been used as a weapon, which is detrimental to all parties. Players like Rhee and Thomas exacerbate the league's racial issues by utilizing the field to vent their personal frustrations rather than addressing the root causes. Bird is not saying that we should avoid talking about race. She is emphasizing that this is not the best course of action. Caitlin's situation is dividing society rather than bringing them together. Then, how will the Indiana Fever react to this situation? This isn't the truth.